From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, FCT High Court orders the Department of State Service to grant lawyers and family members of Mr. Godwin Emefiele immediate access to the suspended CBN governor in its custody. PDP presents star witness at the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, questions refusal of INEC to transmit results to the IREF portal in real time as stipulated in the new Electoral Act. Four more West African countries of Côte d'Ivoire, Liberia, Benin Republic and Guinea sign a deal to join ongoing gas pipeline project from Nigeria to Morocco.
On Business News tonight, Central Bank of Nigeria confirms stance on FX access, says 43 banned items not entitled to Forex in investors and exporters window.
On Sports News tonight, Super Falcons coach Randy Waldrum unveils final squad for next month's FIFA Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand.
From Abuja, the nation's capital, the Nigeria Customs Service begins the destruction of 96 containers of illicit and expired drugs worth over 12 billion naira imported into the country.
And in international news from London, drones and missiles have been launched against Kyiv just as African leaders arrive in Ukraine on a peace mission.
From the courtroom, and Abuja High Court, presided over by Justice Hamza Muazu, has ordered the Director General of the Department of State Service and the agency to immediately grant unrestricted access to the suspended central bank governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, by his lawyers and family members. The order is predicated on an application by counsel to Mr. Emefiele, Joseph Daudu, who informed the court that he has written letters to the DSS for the purpose of taking further instruction from him, but the DSS has refused to respond to the application. Lawyers to the DSS and the Attorney General of the Federation, who is the third respondent, informed the court that the DSS does not have the penchant for refusing such a request and that it is wrong to do so. They gave the assurance that the Security Service would abide by the order of court and grant access to the listed lawyers and family members of Mr. Emefiele to see him. The lawyers, however, prayed for extension of time to file their respective responses to the originating motion, which was granted, and the suit adjourned till Tuesday, June the 19th, 2023, for hearing of the substantive suit. A former senator representing Kogi West, Dino Melaye, has said that as the chief collation officer alongside several other collation officers of the People's Democratic Party across the country, he decided against signing election results because the process was full of irregularities in several places. Mr. Melaye, who was the star witness of the PDP under cross-examination in court, questioned the refusal of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to transmit the results of the polling unit to the IREF portal in real time, as stipulated in the new Electoral Act. Our correspondent Dele Omoyeni reports on today's proceedings at the Presidential Election Petition Court.
The Presidential Election Petition Court again reconvenes for another sitting as the People's Democratic Party and the Labour Party are still calling witnesses. As the councils to the various parties settle down, the proceedings begin with the Labour Party calling 3 witnesses. The first witness is a professor of mathematics who revealed under cross-examination that he analysed the results of the elections across the country, but used those of Benue and Rivers as the test case based on available data from the IREF portal and from EC8As, and concluded that the election results were flawed. However, when asked who he believes won the election, he said he could not say. The Labour Party further called 2 more witnesses from 2 media organizations who gave evidence in respect of videos played in open court from their mediums, where the national chairman of INEC said results of the polling unit will be transmitted to the IRIF portal in real time on the day of elections. The counsel to the APC then asked if they were familiar with a report in one of the national newspapers 3 days to the elections, where the INEC chairman stated that transmission of results may no longer be possible. Both of them denied any knowledge of such. The court then adjourned the case of the Labour Party till Monday next week and took a 2-hour break. When the court resumed in the afternoon, it was the turn of the People's Democratic Party, who called its star witness and chief coalition officer of the party at the presidential elections, Mr. Dino Melaye. Mr. Melaye, who is the 22nd witness the PDP is calling, insists under cross-examination by various counsels to the petitioner and respondents that as long as INEC failed to transmit the results of the polling units in real time, the law has not been complied with. Hence, the presidential election results cannot stand. After the court adjourned, counsel to the PDP briefed the media on the day's proceedings.
You see, our witness is a very experienced person, a legislator, and who played a key role in the legislation, which is the subject matter of this case. And you see how he gave evidence of the innovation by the new Electoral Act, which is this aspect of electronic transmission of results. And that is the bone of contention.
Now, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, today presented some documents before the court at the request of the counsel of the People's Democratic Party, PDP. However, the counsels to President Bola Tinubu and the All Progressives Congress objected that these documents could not be admitted before the courts as evidence. Even though the PDP says it requested for documents from 22 states from INEC, and INEC brought just 13 local governments from only Nasarawa State, a situation the PDP says is not tenable as it needs these documents to prove its case before the courts. From the Presidential Elections Petitions Court, Dele Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
Staying with the judiciary, the National Judicial Council, NJC, has agreed that 7 judges that were accused of engaging in sundry acts of corruption be investigated. This decision was taken by the council, which is statutorily empowered to discipline erring judicial officers in the country after its 2-day meeting held on June the 14th and 15th. It says it has set up panels to probe the judges. Meanwhile, the council has recommended the appointment of 9 candidates to the Court of Appeal bench, 27 other judicial officers, after considering its interview committee report at a meeting presided over by Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola. In a statement, the Council's Director of Information, Sojioye, notes that the report, which contains a list of 37 candidates, recommended the nominees to President Bola Tinubu for validation. They also include candidates for President of the Customary Court of Appeal, Delta State, 3 judges of the Benue State High Court, 5 judges of the Delta State High Court, 8 judges of the Edo State High Court, and 4 judges of the Katsina State High Court. Away from the judiciary, the National Economic Council has set up an ad hoc committee and given them 2 weeks to look into 2 scenarios suggested by the National Salaries, Wages and Income Commission on how to alleviate the suffering facing Nigerian workers following the removal of fuel subsidy. A statement from the Office of the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, notes at the first NEC meeting chaired by the Vice President after its inauguration by President Bola Tinubu, the chairman of the Commission, Mr. Ekpo Nta, suggested that the national minimum wage be reviewed to reflect present-day realities and a cost of living adjustment allowance costing 702.9 billion naira be created to mitigate the impact of the subsidy removal on workers. NEC also gave an update on the country's accounts, noting that the excess crude account stands at $473,754.56, stabilization account at 26.6 billion naira, while the natural resources fund stands at 96.9 billion naira. Four more West African countries, Côte d'Ivoire, Liberia, Benin Republic and Guinea, have signed memoranda of understanding to be part of the ongoing gas pipeline project from Nigeria to Morocco. The project, which intends to benefit 15 West African countries, now has the commitment of 12 ECOWAS member states. The Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited, Mr. Mele Kyari, made this disclosure at the Project Steering Committee meeting in Abuja. He says the project provides an opportunity for Nigeria to monetize her rich hydrocarbon resources.
Members of the steering committee for the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline project are meeting at the conference room of the ECOWAS Secretariat in Abuja to sign a memorandum of understanding with 4 additional countries.
The chair of ECOWAS and then
the countries are Côte d'Ivoire, Liberia, Guinea and Benin Republic.
This is a clear demonstration of the commitment of the host government.
Before putting pen to paper, the Chief Group Executive Officer of the NNPC Limited, Mr. Mele Kyari, underscores the importance of the project to the West African region.
As a commercial enterprise, NNPC sees this project as an opportunity to monetize our abundant hydrocarbon resources by expanding access to energy to support economic growth, industrialization, and job creation across the African continent and other geographies. Our collective decisions and actions, guided by our shared visions, will extend far beyond gas supply to spur prosperity and economic integration between our nations.
The Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline project is an extension of the West African gas pipeline project, which intends to run across 15 ECOWAS member states and later extend to Europe. Many of the participants at this meeting believe in the viability of the project.
The study showed that the project is viable in terms of bankability. So now it's private sector that we are waiting to come to fund that project, and the estimate cost is almost $30 billion.
As you know, this important project, a strategic one, was launched by the 2 high leaders, His Majesty King Mohammed VI and the President Buhari, and it is an important project for our African region because it is a project who will integrate all this area with more than 13 countries. It will accelerate the access to electricity for all the people in this region. It will be a tool to increase industrialization and make economic and development of this area of our continent.
The Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline project is projected to go up between $25 and $30 billion, and it is to be driven by public-private partnership.
And the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, is apologizing to Nigerian Muslims over his comments on the leadership contest in the National Assembly. The Vice President, who explained that he was quoted out of context, says he has no ill will against Islam. In an interview with BBC Hausa, Senator Kashim Shettima says he made the comments in the best interest of Nigeria, being privy to some intelligence he cannot disclose to the public. He added that the trajectory of Nigerian politics today made it pertinent for people in leadership positions to come out and warn against divisions and disunity in the country. Mr. Kashim Shettima's comments last week stirred serious controversy, especially on social media, that drew criticisms to his personality. However, the Vice President assures that he is a true Muslim whose ancestors have been in Islam for long. In part 2, after the break, Nigeria receives over 1.5 million doses of pentavalent vaccines donated by the government of Indonesia to boost immunization drive in the country. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.
Take it from me, the mind-blowing way to do things is the Glow LTE Advanced Way. When you stream, it's like you're in the drama itself. When you make calls, you reach where others can't. Cookie! Doing business is like running Wall Street from your street. And when you play,
I did beat the guy. We'll see about that.
It's like traveling the world without moving an inch.
Is that Toby in your room?
You can download in the blink of an eye in 4K.
Go.
And when you go for your dreams, it's like running with the strength of 3 nations behind you.
Glow LTE Advanced, the power of 3 data networks in one. Get a Glow SIM or dial *301#.
The Duchess International Hospital opened its doors in October 2021. The mission of the hospital is to reverse medical tourism. We take particular care here at the Duchess to bring together a combination of the brightest and the best locally, as well as Nigerians in the diaspora who are interested in returning to do very good work for the benefit of our patients here in this country.
The good thing is that we have all international expertise here, all international facilities here, international people working here. Everything is coming together in a space which was considered not great in terms of the availability of healthcare.
Access Bank, of course, has been able to provide us with a robust range of products and services that has enabled us to deliver that standard and quality of healthcare that is integral to our mission as an organization.
Sometimes, it's not just the distance we travel. It's the gaps we close. It's not the things we buy. It's the memories we create. Sometimes, it's beyond the places we go. It's the connections we make. Not just the things we taste. It's the taste of things to come. And it's never a question of if, but when. Because life is always just a bit better with American Express. Introducing the Access Bank American Express Gold Card and the Metal Platinum Card. Now available through Access Bank.
Recover with Astamin, a blend of amino acids and multivitamins.
My skin is my identity, my strength. It's unique and deserves care made specially for me. New Nivea Radiant and Beauty Advanced Care with 5 oils and 5 vitamins. 48-hour nourishment. Helps reduce appearance of stretch marks in just 2 weeks. New Nivea Radiant and Beauty Advanced Care for your shade of beautiful.
Welcome back if you just joined us. You're watching the news at 10, coming to you live from Channels Television. Here's a reminder of our top stories. FCT High Court orders the Department of State Service to grant lawyers and family members of Mr. Godwin Emefiele immediate access to the suspended CBN governor in its custody. PDP presents star witness at the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, questions the refusal of INEC to transmit the results to the IRF portal in real time as stipulated in the new Electoral Act. 4 more West African countries of Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Benin Republic and Guinea signed deal to join ongoing gas pipeline project from Nigeria to Morocco. And drones and missiles have been launched against Kyiv just as African leaders arrive in Ukraine on a peace mission. Powerful cabals in Abuja are at the center of oil theft in Nigeria. This is according to prominent Niger Delta activist Mr. Asari Dokubo, who, after a private meeting with President Bola Tinubu in his office, accused some members of the Nigerian military, especially the Nigerian Navy, of being behind 99% of oil theft in the country. Mr. Dokubo, who assured the president of zero oil theft in his administration, also lent his voice on the arrest of Mr. Nnamdi Kanu, asserting that releasing the self-acclaimed IPOB leader will be tantamount to rewarding criminality. Our State House correspondent Gloria Mezuke reports.
Days after President Bola Tinubu promised to put a halt to crude oil theft in the country, he meets with prominent Niger Delta activists Mr. Asari Dokubo at the State House. It is the activists' first meeting with the president and a grand opportunity to open up on the challenge of crude oil theft.
99% of oil theft can be traced to the Nigerian military, the Army and the Navy especially. The Army and the Navy intimidate the civil defense, who are by status the people who are supposed to guard these pipelines. And there are notorious naval commanders who are known to be kingpins of these bunkering activities. Even if they give 1 billion contracts to everybody in the Niger Delta, because these military men are armed from the Army and the Navy, nothing will happen. The president has promised to take decisive action to make sure that this does not continue. They have migrated from the pipeline and have gone directly to the oil well heads. They set up haphazard facilities they call local refinery, artisan refinery. This is crime against humanity.
The direct accusation by the Niger Delta leader appears to correlate with revelations in 2022 by the group CEO of NNPCL, Mr. Mili Kyari, who had pointed fingers at security agencies and government officials, among others, for their complicity.
The people doing the bunkering are not our people, because they cannot bring those big supercargo ships, vessels that are almost the size of this villa. They don't have the resources. There are powerful cabals, far more stronger, who think they are far more stronger. But they've met their match. And their match is President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. He is going to bring all of them. He's going to expose all of them. And many people will be marching to Kuje and Krikri prison.
On insecurity in the country, Mr. Dokubo again reacts to the arrest of self-acclaimed IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu.
This is a criminal. He should face the law. What of the people who have died by, as I'm talking, Nnamdi Kanu does not have any control over what is happening in the southeast. Simeon Ekpa had come out pretending that he's with Nnamdi Kanu. He has actually plotted a coup against Nnamdi Kanu to take over the leadership of IPOB. That is the truth of the matter. So releasing Nnamdi Kanu is rewarding criminality and rewarding gruesome murder of innocent people.
President Bola Tinubu, who's had a significant number of visitors during the week, wrapped it up with the visit of former governor of Zamfara State, Mr. Bello Matawalle, and Africa's business tycoon, Mr. Aliko Dangote, who chose to reschedule a briefing on his visit till next week. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Well, in a swift reaction to the alleged military involvement in oil theft, the Nigerian Navy has described Asari Dokubo's accusations as spurious and unfortunate. Speaking to our defense correspondent via telephone, the Navy Director of Public Relations, Commodore Adedotun Ayovan, challenged Mr. Dokubo to mention the names of those he claims are involved in the act within the military. He says Dokubo is only trying to court the favor of President Bola Tinubu and nothing more. The Navy spokesman says the Nigerian Navy has, through its Operation Dakata Dabarawo, recorded tremendous successes in the fight against oil theft in the Niger Delta region. He adds that the recent arrest of a ship, Heroic Edu, that entered Nigeria illegally, and the court fines the owner of the ship were made to pay, among other accomplishments, demonstrates the will of the Nigerian Navy to fight crude oil theft in the country. And as part of its mandate to help the transition process of military retirees, the Nigerian Armed Forces Resettlement Center has graduated over 700 officers after an intensive 6 months training on entrepreneurship and management courses. The Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Oladayo Omao, who was special guest of honor at the graduation ceremony, challenged the graduates to be mindful of the many challenges associated with post-service life. Well, we go to health matters now. As part of enhancing the nation's immunization drive, Nigeria has received 1,508,000 doses of pentavalent vaccines donated by the government of Indonesia. The pentavalent vaccine is designed to protect children against major childhood diseases such as diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, hepatitis B, and Haemophilus influenza type B. The Executive Director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shuaib, received the vaccines in Abuja on behalf of the federal government.
The nation's health sector receives a boost as the Indonesian government donates 1,580,000 doses of life-saving pentavalent vaccines to support Nigeria's routine immunization program. The pentavalent vaccine is a critical tool for protecting children against 5 major childhood diseases: diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, hepatitis B, and Haemophilus influenza type B.
Is the pentavalent vaccine in order to guard against disease including diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, hepatitis B. All these donations are to improve the healthcare system and increase immunization coverage for every child in Nigeria to grow up safe and healthy.
Nigeria is in dire need of vaccine to close the gap of zero-dose children, and we believe your contribution will go a long way as Nigeria is accelerating to close that gap. It's very important for us, especially the UN agencies, to show that we fully support the avenue of South-South collaboration.
The National Primary Healthcare Development Agency received the vaccines on behalf of the federal government, and the Executive Director of the agency, Dr. Faisal Shuaib, believes such international cooperation will further protect the health and well-being of Nigerian children.
We will be guided by 3 fundamental principles: accessibility, equity, and efficiency. We firmly believe that every child, regardless of their background or geographic location, should have equitable access to these life-saving vaccines. We will leave no child behind.
The agency is promising that it will continue to be guided by the principles of accessibility, equity, and efficiency, and believes that every child, regardless of their background or geographic location, should have equitable access to these life-saving vaccines.
And 200 billion naira, that's the total sum of money that has been spent so far on preparations for the 2023 census, and that's according to the National Population Commission. The Director of Public Affairs in the Commission, Mr. Isiaka Yahaya, stated this at a meeting with journalists in Abuja, explaining that the money was spent since 2014 when preparations for the 2023 census actually began. According to him, no new date has been set for the 2023 census.
The Commission opted to conduct a digital census deploying technology on a massive scale. In a country struggling with acute infrastructural deficit, this massive undertaking cannot come cheap, but at a huge cost. Yes, it is true that the 200 billion has been spent on preparation for the 2023 census so far. However, this fund was not expended in the last few weeks, months, or year, but rather since 2014, when preparations for the 2023 census actually began. Major cost elements in the EAD project include the acquisition of high-resolution satellite imageries of the entire land area of Nigeria and equipment, deployment of logistics across the country, and training and deployment of tens of thousands of hard workers for several months to carry out the field operation. All these were paid for and heavily too. Another major cost element of the 2023 census is the series of tests carried out by the Commission to determine the appropriateness or otherwise of the methodology, processes, and systems being put in place for the exercise. The Commission procured a total of 810,000 PDA for the 2023 census. Given this huge number, the item was procured in phases, and a significant proportion of these mini computers have been procured, configured, and now stored in the central bank offices across the country.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Central Bank of Nigeria confirms stance on FX access, says 43 banned items not eligible for Forex in investors and exporters window. We have that on Business News. To join us again.
Just pick your phone and dial the number 894 for me, 894 for you, 894 for Nigeria.
Dial *894#.
You first bank.
Good morning. My life is a whole lot easier now, even when I'm working from home. I still get everything done. Workout track. And faster too. Guys, I'll make my decision and get back to you. I take my meetings uninterrupted. Video call Catherine. Calling Catherine. Checking with Bay. No cracks. Go, go, go! Behind you, behind you! And when it's time to bond with my friends across the globe, I connect seamlessly, all thanks to my Airtel router. Delivery is here. Thank you. Be like me. Stay connected always with the Airtel home broadband.
Who are you talking to?
It's nothing.
You're talking to me?
No.
Airtel, a reason to imagine. That's right. You too could be one of the 20 Zenith Bank customers that will win 150,000 Naira every 2 weeks from June 1st, 2023 until May 31st, 2024 in the Zenith Better Life Promo 3. To qualify, simply open a Zenith Bank account. For more information, visit www.zenithbank.com/betterlife. Live the better life with Zenith Bank.
Every Nigerian deserves this.
As I rub
to my boss's office. He said I should get in the blue file. It's here somewhere. Bro, the file was right in front of him. He just moved his finger and said, that would be all. Down this trophy. My guy. My main guy. It was on my introduction now. Fast forward to today. This guy doing japa. Go London. And for IG, now they see the congratulatory message.
Take this chief also. Take fish and well.
Honorables! Next round on me! Every Nigerian deserves a trophy, don't we?
Time now to hand you over to my colleague in Abuja, Linda Akigwe. Linda, it's good to see you. It looks like we are color compliant this Friday.
Hello, Millicent. Good to see you too. And 4 days after the tragic boat mishap that occurred in Egboti community in Patigi local government area of Kwara State, the boat wreckage has now been removed from the river. The operation, which took about 4 hours, was near impossible to achieve initially until additional manpower was provided.
The village is about 25 minutes walk to Egboti community, where more than 106 persons drowned in the unfortunate boat accident. Both communities are only accessible by water as there are no access roads linking them. Efforts to remove the boat wreckage by men from Egboti and Ebu villages began around 9 a.m. and by midday the task was still uncompleted as the initial 2 boats hired for the task were inadequate due to the weight of the wreckage underwater. The team had to wait another 2 hours for 2 more boats to be hired, while they were also joined by additional 47 men before they could complete the exercise. This man who survived the accident lost a wife and 2 children.
After we see her say the children they go down, we tell them say some people they swim, maybe they jump. So that they jump, children they go down, the children they go down. After they go down, now we can't jump with one of my son. We jump, we suffer. We reach here, go to the airport, I carry one. So now my son with my daughter, 2 don't go, my wife don't go.
A member of the rescue team advocates for the provision of life jackets and proper monitoring of passengers who travel regularly via the waterways.
The major factor is if there will be an assistance from government by providing life jackets to the riverine areas, creating some task force that may regulate the number of loads or people carried during the journey. I think it may likely minimize this kind of incidents.
This young man standing some distance from the riverbank has been identified as the groom from whose wedding ceremony the travelers in the boat mishap incident were returning. He declined all interview requests. Families of victims and survivors of the boat mishap are still in great shock and may need post-trauma counseling and therapy. Amid their mourning, they have, however, found strength to reiterate calls for the federal government to provide road infrastructure that will link the neighboring communities so as to prevent a reoccurrence.
The Nigeria Customs Service has commenced the destruction of 96 containers of illicit and expired drugs worth over 12 billion naira. Speaking with journalists during the exercise in the Ekpe area of Lagos, the Assistant Controller General of Customs in charge of enforcement, investigation and inspection, Adoyin Dakpa Williams, said that the seizure, totaling 16 types of illicit and expired drugs, has gone through court condemnation.
A lineup of containers with various brands of illicit and expired drugs ready for destruction in the Ekpe area of Lagos State. Some of the items here are tramadol tablets, codeine cough syrup, diclofenac tablets and injections, black cobra tablets, sildenafil citrate tablets and chacapane extra tablets, among others. Assistant Controller General of Customs in charge of enforcement, investigation and inspection, Adonye Dapa Williams, flags off the exercise. He explains the criteria for choosing the products that get to this stage, with many failing to meet statutory import guidelines.
There is guideline, importation of pharmaceutical products are restricted to very few ports. And that is why the center of destruction has always been legal. It's restricted, it cannot come in from any port of call. Purely restricted. And that is why all our destruction have taken place in Lagos.
Mr. Dapa Williams speaks further on the modalities of the exercise and the choice of the Southwest.
For destruction today, products that fail to meet the statutory import guidelines. The aforementioned items have all been condemned by court of competent jurisdiction with a duty paid value of 12,895,571,288 naira. These containers were apprehended by our operatives because of performing their statutory function at the people. Through this destruction, we are discouraging the importation and consumption of this item.
Also in attendance are the head of Investigation and Enforcement Directorate of NAFDAC, Jamila Ashiru, officials of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, and officials of LOMA.
Traders along the Ring Road 3 Lube Federal Housing Authority in Abuja, site of the proposed electricity corridor of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, have been given till Friday, June the 23rd, 2023, to vacate the area for their safety and relocate to other designated markets. The Director of Development Control for the FCT, Mr. Mukhtar Galadima, told the traders in his office in Abuja that the demolition of the area was slated for June the 19th, but following an appeal for an extension, the demolition has now been extended. And more work needs to be done in the campaign for diversity, equity and inclusion, especially in multicultural societies. Now, this is the view of legal practitioner and diversity ambassador Pearl Moses. Although she believes it's important to maximize one's potential, she stresses the need for organizations and business owners to set aside stereotypes and give room for equal participation and representation on key board positions. She was speaking with Channels Television's anchor, Ijoma Onyato.
The truth of the matter is that as a Nigerian, I never really thought of myself as black, and that might make you laugh because I'm clearly black. But in Nigeria, we thought of ourselves as Nigerians and thought of ourselves as aspirational people, hardworking people. But I didn't necessarily present as black per se. When I started to do my professional roles in the UK, I found very often that that was what people would notice or talk about. And I spoke to a very lovely chap, Jerry, when I was in my Law Society days. And at one point in time, when I said to him, listen, I'm more interested in expertise than in what color my skin is or whether there are people of other ethnicities in that sort of a way. And he said to me, he said, Pearl, you know, the truth of the matter is, no matter how brilliant you are, anytime people look at you, the first thing they'll see is a black woman. And he said, if we look behind us, who else is coming? And, you know, his words kept on ringing in my head. And after a while, I started paying attention. I'd be in certain rooms, I'd see, you're the only person of color in this space. You're the only person of any diversity necessarily in this particular space. And I realized that actually it wasn't enough to be excellent if nobody else was coming or if nobody else was being represented.
To catch the full interview with Pearl Moses, do watch Diaspora Network on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. And that's all from Abuja. Back to Millicent for the rest of the news.
Thanks, Linda. Now to some company news. Tingo Foods plc is already hitting the ground running as it begins construction of its billion-dollar food processing facility, expected to be operational in the next 24 months, creating over 12,000 jobs, as well as boosting agricultural value chain in Delta State. It targets the production of various food products from rice to chocolates and beverages, in addition to other plant-based ingredients and additives. This came to the fore during a guided tour of the project site in Ishekpe village and Nyocha North local government area of the state.
The management of Tingo Foods PLC, as well as other dignitaries, begin the day with a courtesy visit to the palace of the Obi of Onichugbo, His Royal Highness Obi Victor Chukwuemalieze. They're here to familiarize themselves with the traditional ruler of the community, as well as seek his cooperation in seeing that the construction of a $1 billion processing facility is completed in due time. The project will sit on this 40 hectares of land and will be constructed in 2 phases, with phase 1 covering 18.9 hectares and phase 2 covering 22.1 hectares of land.
Presently now, Tingo, the relationship between Tingo and Afan has gone far to an extent that Tingo has started funding our production line.
Leading the crew on a tour of the pictures of the proposed structures, the project contractor, Mr. Tude Remoye, explains how the whole facility will function.
In the next 24 months. And this is the area view of the proposed factory, as you can see. This is the rice mill factory. This is the front view. We have the cereal factory also. Highlighting the importance and impact of the project, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, who was represented by a director in the ministry, says the project aligns with the vision of government in promoting and sustaining food security.
This project will encourage other investors to come into the industry, to invest especially in agro-based production, because that's what is going to rule the world.
For the management of Tingo PLC, there are high hopes that this will bridge the gap between the farm gates and direct consumers, as well as increase exports to earn forex for the country.
The thing is, when you actually see it into reality, you see dreams coming out and giving real work to real people. I can see hundreds of people going to be working here and a lot of people being able to live off this. But also for the millions of farmers that we're going to be able to bring their food and their produce and their vegetables and their fruit and be able to turn them into food that will be a value add. Instead of exporting stuff or it being wasted, all of a sudden we've got a place where there's going to be real market in this country.
Having kicked off with the groundbreaking ceremony in February this year, Tingo Foods PLC is now fully on site in order to meet up with the 24 months deadline for completion of the project.
AXA Mansard Health, a leading insurance provider, has launched the One Health Medical Center for Nigerians in Lagos. The company says the facility will help incentivize healthcare providers to offer high-quality care as they will be reimbursed for their services.
Limited availability of affordable health care is one issue that many Nigerians are grappling with, and leading insurance provider AXA Mansard is launching this One Health Medical Center to close the healthcare gap in the country. CEO AXA Africa Health says the aim is to become the largest healthcare network in the country, while the country manager and medical director, One Health, speaks on the awareness plan.
We have here for you a medical center, not for the wealthy, but one that has been made and fine-tuned for the majority.
In the first phase of our expansion, we expect to open 3 more similar centers in the next couple of years. This is only the first one. And we hope that this is only the beginning, because we expect further investments in the country to grow our footprint as we aim to reach beyond Lagos to become the largest network of medical services in the country.
The CEO, AXA Mansard Health, Tope Adeniyi, stresses that the launch would tackle maldiagnosis, among others, while President, Medical Women Association of Nigeria, Ibironke Sudainde, brings a goodwill message from the Lagos State Governor.
As we felicitate with One Health Medical Center on this significant achievement, let me urge you to remain committed to your philosophy of focusing on total wellness, which includes preventive care, helping people to keep fit, and helping patients get the best of Medicare benefits.
AXA One Health, they call it powered by AXA,
has come with a world-class facility to Nigeria, and it's not going to only serve Nigeria. Very soon, West African nations will be flocking to Nigeria. We're going to have reverse drain. Money will be returning to Nigeria where it actually should be. And I want to announce even to the government that, so you have seen Japa, you will soon see Japa there.
Digital X-ray here, and we'll go through the...
Then, a tour of the newly inaugurated medical center, which is a one-stop healthcare solution with 2 operating theaters, several consultation rooms to laboratories, and a pharmacy. AXA Mansard says the facility will reduce the health-related financial burden, especially for the low and middle-class individuals.
Is it not working?
Time for business news now. Here's Melinda Kinami.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Many thanks, Millicent. Welcome to Business News. The Central Bank of Nigeria has confirmed its stance on FX access regarding 43 banned items introduced under the leadership of Mr. Godwin Emefiele. According to information on the CBN's website, the 43 items are not permitted to be funded from the investors and exporters I&E window. This suggests that the government will continue with import substitution to keep protecting the local market. The Naira appreciated today in the I&E window as it closed at 663 Naira 4 kobo to $1 against its Thursday's close of 702 Naira. The final trading session for the week closes in negative territory as investors continue to take profit. For the details, here's Will Ibong.
Welcome to the stock market report, and as expected, the market closed in the red today. Sustained profit taken by investors triggered a 0.33% decline from the all-share index, shaving off about 106 billion naira from the market's cap. All key sectors we track were in negative territory. The banking and oil and gas indexes took quite some beating today. Rule of the market, though, it doesn't always stay up. As you can see, it's lower turnover as the activity chart is a sea of red. You know, not a lot of numbers to crunch when compared to yesterday's close, but we did have those stocks that fought their way to the top regardless. Coronation Insurance was up today 10%, closed at 66 kobo, followed closely by FTN Cocoa Processing. It's been a fantastic run for equities this week at the NGX. Let's hope it doesn't get bloody next week. And that's the stock market report for today. I'm Will Ibang.
I certainly hope it doesn't. Many thanks, Will. Now let's see how other major global stock markets performed on Friday. That's Business News. It's back to you, Millicent.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks, Melinda. And President Vladimir Putin has confirmed the movement of the first batch of tactical nuclear weapons to Belarus. Speaking at an economic forum, Mr. Putin said they would only be used if Russia's territory or state is threatened. Here's Haman Pusi with other international stories and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Drones and missiles have been launched against Kyiv just as African leaders arrive in Ukraine on a peace mission. The African delegation from 7 countries, including leaders from South Africa, Senegal and Egypt, arrived in Kyiv earlier to begin what's been touted as a peace mission. They then went to the city of Bucha, where Ukrainian authorities say more than 1,400 people died during Russia's occupation, including 37 children. They later met President Volodymyr Zelensky in the capital before heading to Russia tomorrow. The group has agreed to engage with Zelensky and Mr. Putin on a ceasefire and lasting peace. The initiative comes just as Kyiv launches its counter-offensive against the Russian invasion and fighting intensifies, making a ceasefire or deal look unlikely in the short term. NATO defence ministers have met in Brussels for a second day of talks to prepare the upcoming Vilnius Summit of Leaders, which will discuss support for Ukraine and security guarantees. Opening the meeting, Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said he expected leaders to discuss boosting ammunition supplies from industry and a commitment to higher defence spending. They are also set to discuss how best to assure Ukraine's security until it can join the military alliance.
Today, we will prepare the ground for the NATO summit in Vilnius, where leaders will take decisions to further strengthen our deterrence and defence. We will review our updated plans for the defence of Europe. We will take steps to ensure our industrial base can meet higher demand, and we will develop a new, more ambitious defence investment pledge, which I expect will set 2% of GDP as a minimum to invest in defence.
A deadly tornado has swept through a northern Texas town, killing 3 people and injuring dozens more. Perryton, which is near the Oklahoma border, appears to be the center of an intense storm system that has carved its way through the south. Surrounding areas are sending emergency crews to assist the town, home to about 8,000 people. A further 75 people have been taken to hospital. Tropical cyclone Biparjoy has made landfall in India's western Gujarat state close to the Pakistan border, unleashing powerful gusts of wind that has ripped up trees and toppled electricity poles. At landfall, Biparjoy was equivalent to a strong tropical storm with winds of 65 miles per hour. As it moves slowly inland, the winds and storm surge threats are expected to diminish, with flooding becoming the most significant impact for millions of people over the next 48 hours. Heavy rainfall warnings are expected to remain in place for the northwest of India until the end of Saturday. Finland's far-right Finns Party has agreed to enter a coalition government with the centre-right National Coalition Party and 2 other groups. The party, which secured second place in April's election, had sought drastic cuts to immigration during talks. The minority language Swedish People's Party and the Christian Democrats will be the other 2 parties in government. The new coalition sees outgoing Prime Minister Sanna Marin and her centre-left party ousted from government. The National Coalition Party came first in the election, winning 48 seats. And Pope Francis has arrived at the Vatican after having been discharged from Rome's Gemelli Hospital 9 days after he underwent surgery to repair an abdominal hernia. The 86-year-old left hospital in a wheelchair, waving to reporters and well-wishers at the main entrance as he was taken to a waiting car. Before returning to the Vatican, the Pope stopped to pray at the Basilica of St. Mary Major, a stop he makes before and after every trip abroad. Francis travels to Portugal at the start of August and Mongolia at the end of that month. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Super Falcons head coach Randy Waldrum has listed UEFA Women's Champions League winner Azizat Oshola, Rasheedat Ajibade and history-making captain Onome Ebi in his final squad for this year's FIFA Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. The final list includes 3 goalkeepers, 7 defenders, 6 midfielders and 7 strikers. Super Eagles forward Samuel Chukwueze is appealing to the Confederation of African Football to ensure only playable pitches are approved to host AFCON qualifiers as the 3-time African champions prepare to face Sierra Leone in Monrovia on Sunday. With 9 points from 4 games, Nigeria are currently second in Group A of the qualifiers, a point behind Guinea-Bissau, and Chukwueze is confident they will get the job done come Sunday. Belgium coach Domenico Tedesco admits that he is very surprised by the way star striker Romelu Lukaku was criticised after losing the Champions League final. Belgium returned to training ahead of the European Championship qualifier against Austria on Saturday, in which they will miss Kevin De Bruyne, Champions League winner. And that's sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. It's back to you, Millicent.
Thanks, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The FCT High Court ordered the Department of State Service to grant lawyers and family members of Mr. Godwin Emefiele today immediate access to the suspended CBN governor who is in its custody. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Enjoy your weekend.